A very good evening to everyone. Myself, Ankit Khare. I'm working as an assistant professor in Center for Information Technology at UPES, Dehradun. Today's webinar is on open source is the future of technology. And the overall agenda of today's webinar is basically divided into four categories. First, we will see what is exactly open source, and then we'll discuss what are the upcoming technologies and the latest trends in open source. And finally, we'll discuss what is exactly we are doing at in open source at UPES, and what are the various career prospects in open source domain. Right. Let's start with today's presentation. We are talking about open source software, right? So open source is basically, the making things open source. It sounds like a great ideology of sharing and making the world a better place. But the success of making things open source, it depends on more than simply allowing anyone to use and modify it. So the term open source is a relatively new one and emerging in the past couple of decades with the growth of computer software and the internet. And today, the concept of open source is flooding into various other industries. It's creating a lot of interest in the open future. But there is a misconception that non-technologists have about open source, that the value of open source is primarily about making things freely accessible to be used by everyone, right? So if we're talking about the open source, let's take an example of VLC media player, right? If you want to use a VLC media player, what you need to do, you can just Google it, VLC media player. Then you can download, install in your laptop or PC, whatever, and just start using it. It's freely available. It can be accessed by anyone from any place. Even for any open source software, source code is also available, and you can do some changes over that code and you can reuse it, right? So everything is open. That's why we are calling it open source software. uh, I'm sure that if there's something is open, then there must be closed, right? So if we talk about the closed source system, closed source can be defined as the software which are a licensed product, and that has to be bought to use. And source code are not viewable by anyone, and it cannot be modified. For example, your Microsoft Windows or Apple, these all are the proprietary software. You have to purchase the license, then only you can use it. It's not like a VLC media player and all, which is freely available over the web. So let's say if you want to purchase if you want to buy a laptop that is cost around 40,000 or 50,000, but out of this 40,000, minimum 7 to 8,000 you need to pay for the Microsoft Windows operating system only, right? So it's not freely available. Even you cannot view the source code of any proprietary software. But in terms of open source software, it can be viewed. You can view the source code as well. You can do some modification. It's freely available, and it's can be accessed by anyone. So now you can compare this open source software with the closed source software. So in terms of use, open source can be used anywhere, but closed source software, they are more license restricted, right? And in terms of view, source code can be viewed. Obviously in open source software, source code is available, but closed source software, that the source code is not available. But in terms of modify source code, obviously it can be modified, but closed source software you can't do some any changes or modifications. And even the share, you can redistribute or your open source software, but closed source software cannot be redistributed, right? So this is the basic difference. If we discuss the how exactly the open source works, so for any effective collaboration and distribution, many tools have emerged around the development of open source. I will not talk about them all, but obviously I do want to mention one particular, that is a version control. Version control, basically a system is allow anyone to easily modify the code, maintain their own version, and merge it back with the original if they wish so. So version control keeps track of all the changes along the way, making it easy to see every where something has changed and how it was changed. So let's say that I am a developer and that wants to make a change in the Linux code, But I would begin by forking the Linux repository to my computer. So make my changes to the code and then submit it back to the original repository as a pull request. That is then either accepted or rejected by the package maintainer. Now, if the package maintainer, let's say, chooses not to apply my modifications, so I can either work it out or with the maintainer or in the community until the maintainers are convinced. Or what I can do, I can start my own fork and become the maintainer of my own version. So what exactly, how open sources works, there is a one maintainer or developer who actually wrote the code, then it gives to the community or a society, that there are n number of individual developers and users, they actually start contributing it, and finally that source code will become more improved version, and finally it's put it over the web. Now it's available for the everyone. So this is the overall working of open source software. So as I said, it's a collaborative work. So there are the three pillars of any open source software: your code, community, and collaborate. In many ways, the backbone of the recent technical revolution was the open source software that made collaboration and cycle of technological scaffolding possible. So in an economy of physical goods, let's say if I give you a car, so now you have a car and I no longer have a car, but in an economy of open source software, I can easily duplicate the software and we can both have the copies that we can infinitely distribute. So this is all about the collaboration. That means code, community, and the collaborate. This is the actually pillars of open source softwares. Now move on to the next part, that is Linux development. I'm sure you all of must aware about the Linux. Linux basically, it's most of the world's computing system are running on the Linux in any form. If you are watching this on your Android phone or Mac or whatever, you are directly using some sort of Linux operating system, right? So over around 8,000 people have come together to write the code you are currently using, and saying that Linux operating system has been one of the most significant technological wonders of our time would be an understatement. So Linux would not be possible without the open source community. So, but if we look at the history of Linux, we find that is it's by no means organized. There are many different variants of Linux that are referred to as a distributions. So, and anyone is free to take and modify a distribution for their own use. And because of this, we get an extremely rich and dynamic history of Linux. Over 8,000 people have contributed to the core Linux code, creating over 1 million lines of code. And the fact that so many people have come together to create such a powerful piece of software, and even without receiving any financial compensation. So that's the beauty of the overall Linux development process. As you can see in this slide as well, there are n number of companies like Red Hat, IBM, Intel, Oracle. They all are contributing in the development process of Linux. But the more number is the individual developer who actually contributing day by day in the process of development of this Linux. So that is the thing. Now here you can see the few examples of open source software, like your Mozilla Firefox, MySQL, Android, PHP, Python, Apache. You must be aware about this Mozilla, Android. We used to these kind of software in our day-to-day life. So these are the very popular examples, and they all are very popular in any technology field. So we always used to for the proprietary software like your Microsoft Word, your PowerPoint, or Microsoft Excel, but we never try to find out some alternatives for these closed source software. But we have a very popular and with various competitive features. There are many open source softwares are also available as an alternative of these software, like for for this Microsoft Word, you can have this Open Office, and for Microsoft PowerPoint, you can use Prezi, and for this Microsoft Excel, you can go for the Google spreadsheet. So these all are the open source software which is freely available over the web, and we should start using these software as well as compared to the proprietary one. So I'm sure now you must be, have little bit idea about what is exactly the open source software and how, we can relate this with the closed source software. So there are various, future technologies and trends which is in open source software. And when I'm talk about, the future technology in open source, the first thing, that comes in my mind, that is the OpenStack. OpenStack basically is a set of software tools for building and managing cloud computing platforms for public and private clouds. And OpenStack is made up of many different moving parts. Because of its open nature, anyone can add this additional component to the OpenStack to help it to meet their needs. And how exactly this open source, this OpenStack used in a cloud environment? Basically, the cloud is all about providing computing for end user in a remote environment, and where the actual software runs as a service on a reliable and scalable server rather than on each end user's computer. So cloud computing you can refer to a lot of different things, but typically the industry talks about running different items as a service. So as a service, whether it's a software or platform or infrastructure. So this OpenStack is falls into the later category, which is considered as a infrastructure as a service. So it's providing the infrastructure means that OpenStack makes it easy for users to quickly add new instance upon which other cloud components can run. So typically the infrastructure then runs a platform upon which a developer can create software applications that are delivered to the end user. So OpenStack, so there is one term of web stack which is have evolved over the decades with some advancement in technology as well as in backend languages. And basically there are two most popular web stack which is currently in use. First one is your LAMP and second one is your mean stack. So they rely on two different technologies for backend languages, for database and server environments. And basically this term stack refers to the technologies that stack on top of each other in order to create a web server environment. So we'll discuss one by one. First we'll see the LAMP. LAMP is basically, it's originally for four open source components. L stand for the Linux operating system, and this A stand for the Apache HTTP server, M is your MySQL relational database management system, and P is the for PHP, which is your programming or scripting language. So LAMP components are largely interchangeable and not limited to the original selection. So as a solution stack, LAMP is suitable for building any dynamic websites and any other web applications. So as compared to the LAMP, which is open source web development platform, there is one more upcoming or future technology, that is your mean stack. So mean stack basically it's a free and open source JavaScript software stack. For this is also used for the building dynamic websites or web applications. Mean stack is this MongoDB, Express.js, Angular and Node.js. And because all components of the mean stack supports program written in JavaScript. So mean applications can be written in one language for both server side and the client side execution environment. And this Node.js lets you to write server side applications by using JavaScript. Node.js is also faster and more scalable than other server-side technologies. And this AngularJS is an open source client-side JavaScript framework. And this MongoDB, which is a document-oriented database that allows you to store the documents in JSON format. And JSON basically stands for the JavaScript object notion. So MongoDB is therefore a format that JavaScript natively understand, because if you are if your server side code is written in JavaScript and your client side applications are also in Java, then it makes sense to use a database with a JavaScript flavor. So relational database like MySQL have been around for 3 decades, that they surely have their place, but it is just a matter of applications objective, right? So MongoDB may be better in some cases and MySQL in others, but fortunately this doesn't affect the mean acronym, because M is stand for MongoDB as well as for the MySQL. So mean stack is it's a more modern stack that's challenging the LAMP stack, and it is completely a JavaScript powered. So that makes it both a time as well as money saver for any organization that already have JavaScript pros writing client side code, right? So this is about the mean stack. Now we'll see some various pros and cons of LAMP stack. LAMP is tried, the advantage of LAMP is it's a well tried and tested, because many websites or web applications software tools have been programmed with LAMP, which is, people know exactly where to put their efforts to building a working solutions. And one more advantage is, experts is also available, because you will find a lot of developers out there who know each of the technologies, be it a Perl or PHP or Python or MySQL. So developers are working on these solutions in some time, but so you will also find some all expert around the world in this field. This is the biggest advantage of to use the LAMP stack. But for there are some drawbacks also with LAMP stack, like it's not built from scratch for cloud solutions, because the technologies like PHP were not built for the current requirements with cloud solutions have. So PHP initially for build smaller kinds of websites. There is one more drawbacks with LAMP, that is not as scalable as mean, because the proponents of mean will argue that MongoDB is much faster than MySQL, and also the LAMP is not scalable due to its architecture. And there are some several experts are needed, because you might need an expert in MySQL and someone else who is strong in PHP. So, and maybe maybe even someone for the front end development in HTML or CSS. So there are various advantages and disadvantages with this LAMP stack. But it's not like that ki we don't have any drawbacks with mean as well. There is more pros and cons with mean, like it solving many issues which LAMP has, because the many developers saw the mistake which LAMP brings and have solved many of those issues through this mean stack. With Angular, let's say for example you have a powerful front-end development tool, and now everything is built on JavaScript. This is the biggest advantage with mean, because everything is built on JavaScript, so that all the technologies like MongoDB, Express, Angular or Node all are built on JavaScript. And this has a several advantage, because one of them would be that one developer with a strong JavaScript knowledge could be to use to build the whole solution, whether it's a front end or back end. And also when we talk about the mean stack, its data transfer is much more faster, right? Because in LAMP many different data structures are used, and there always need to be change in how the data is handled. But in mean, all the technologies are working with the same data processing, and thus it is easier to exchange the data. But there is some drawbacks with mean, like obviously you need an expert, because the mean technology this has a lots of limits and bugs which you need to know, so as to not build to the wrong direction. Angular for example has a lot of limitations, so this is the case with MongoDB and other technologies in the stack as well. So this also brings us to the next very big issue. But there is one more issue with mean. It's difficult to find the expert. You will have a difficult to find the developers who are strong in these new technologies. For example, to find a strong Angular developer, this is a really tough, because so you would naturally rely on entry level programmers. but in these technology and try to somehow make them learn these quickly. So this is not actually work out well, and also this is not well tried and tested, because you might not find a lot of answers to questions in regard to mean online, and some technologies are so new, so that there is only a small online community discussing the issue which might come up during the development. So apart from, both the stacks have various advantages and disadvantages. Now the question will be which one, to use, which one we need to prefer. But this, it depends on the type of the web applications to be built, because both LAMP and mean are the virtual machines can be spun up really quickly for development and testing and even the production. But this node.js has some advantage for future scaling, but that's not to say that lamp cannot be scaled. So in this sense, comparing the lamp to mean is unjust, right? Because mean includes a front end component, whereas a lamp refers to just the back end. Lamp refers more to low level, whereas mean is more high level side. It's probably wouldn't make much sense to migrate an existing lamp applications to mean, but if I were starting a brand new UI focused application, I'd probably opt for a mean. So I can say mean would be better option because it's faster your development. So obviously, if you all need a simple website, it's quite foolish to opt a meme, because LAMP topped with powerful CMS like WordPress or this Drupal can meet the needs of many business websites for most e-commerce businesses, and there is a plenty of existing software to handle the job. Mean should only be considered for tech-heavy businesses. If you want to adopt a new technology, you should be prepared for the potential debugging nightmares and a lot of reinventing the wheels. So this is another thing to consider would be the team, because PHP programmers are generally much more common, and subsequently PHP programmer can be hired for lower cost as compared to the Node.js programmer. So if I'm working with a team that knew the PHP well but wasn't experienced with Node.js, then it probably wouldn't be worthwhile to teach the whole team a new development platform or vice versa, or you need to stick with what you know. So deciding between LAMP and mean is really it's a project specific. We can't say LAMP is better or mean is better. This is really a project specific, because it depending on the available skill, or some you can say a business constraints and application demands, or one could be forgiven choosing either option. And some applications you may have both stack, you may have LAMP for the API and the mean for the GUI specifically. So these technology is in each stack are not exclusive. You may use relational database like MySQL or a non-relational database like MongoDB. That depends. It's not like that ki we have to skip only exclusive for these technology. You can have various combinations of these stack. Here I want to discuss some most valuable open source projects like OpenStack, Docker, this Drupal, Linux, Ubuntu, all are the very famous open source project. Uh, OpenStack we have already discussed, and Drupal is basically is a content management software which is used to make many of the websites and applications you use every day. And Drupal has great standards features like easy content, authoring, reliable performance, and excellent security. And this Docker also, this is also an open source project that automates the development of applications inside the software containers. So your Ubuntu is very famous open source operating system, Linux. These all are the very most valuable open source project which we have, yeah, which they have developed. So these are the various technologies in open source. And by in this presentation you can see the rate of the adoption of these open source in industry. As you can see in this slide, 73 million computers are running on the Linux, and even the 500 million websites are open in Mozilla Firefox, and almost approx 78% of companies are running on the open source software. So this figure, I'm sure this can be a great motivation for all of us that industry also is nowadays adopting to this open source software. And why these why these industries are adopting open source software? Because of these features. They are more secure as compared to the proprietary software. It's very easy to deploy these software. They have ability to scale as well, and obviously where there are more competitive features as compared to the proprietary one. So nowadays open source is a first choice for industry, and even not only industry, in any sector, open source nowadays it's a first choice. Recently, I was just browsing the Digital India website, and I was just wondered, which I have seen on the very home page of Digital India official government portal, that there is one article related to open source, and open source is an extremely important aspect of Digital India, because you can't imagine a Digital India project without this open source software. And nowadays government also has clearly mandate that for any e-governance project we have to use a open source software. So government has clearly made the policies of these things. And I have also I would like to share one more article with you, that is published in Economic Times, that the article says open source software could help India save around approx 8,000 crores in education sector only. So this is the case study, because if you replace the entire proprietary system with the open source software, you can save 8,000 crore in education sector only. And now you can imagine if we replace the entire system, whether it's a government departments or any industry, if we replace the entire system with the open source software, then obviously it booms our country's economy. So contribution of open source in any technology, because any project like your Digital India or this smart cities, you must have these four technologies: cloud computing, big data, operating system, and Internet of Things. Without these four technology, you cannot imagine any Digital India or any smart cities concept. And open source is the backbone of this technology, right? Because open source, if you talk about open source in IoT, IoT there is one development tools like Arduino is one of the most preferred tools for IoT, since it provides both a hardware specifications and software with IDE programming language. And even the contribution of open source in big data. So in big data also there are lots of very popular projects like your Apache Spark or Apache Hive or HBase. So obviously open source is a backbone of any technology like your cloud computing, or it's a big data or operating system or IoT. So contribution of open source is everywhere. So now I would like to discuss what exactly we are doing at UPS. As I'm sure you must aware about, UPS has very domain specific or offered very industry oriented courses. Even in computer science only we have 15 various specialization, like in computer science with a specialization in open source, computer science specialization with cloud computing, with mainframe. So this with specialization means what? We have a basic engineering subjects. We are also providing some domain specific subjects, and apart from these we also give some hands-on training on these a particular software which is related to their domain. And finally, UPS engineer is a blend of these three things. They have the knowledge of basic engineering subject, they have the knowledge of basic domain specific subjects, and as well as they have a practical exposure. So this is the overall concept. And open source at UPES, basically this course has aim to produce the skilled professional in the open source software and open standard domain. So apart from the general subjects which is taught in regular BTech courses, these are the some key features which which makes you specialized in open source domain, like Linux administration, XML programming. You can learn in this course administrating how to administrate open source system. And there is one more core subject which is IT applications and open standards, marketing and services and OSS, graphics and animation tools, open source mobile platform which is your Android platform basically, or open source development methodology. So these courses which makes you more more experts in open source domain. And if you ask about the career prospects, so after learning this course, you can be go for the Android development, you can go for the Linux administration, or you can be a LAMP developer, software engineer, IT advisor, or you can also work for the freelancer or the full stack development. So these all are the career prospects where you can see yourself after after graduate in open source. But apart from these, obviously there are more number of recruiters we have. I cannot, uh, I cannot put all the names here because of the limited space. But I just want to mention few recruiters which already visited our campus, and almost 50 plus companies have already visited, and almost 100% placement we have achieved in this semester. And companies like Microsoft, Amazon, Dell, Commvault, IBM, Infosys, all these companies, have offered a very good package to our students, and uh, you know, uh, already some students are working in this. So for for placement point of view, there is it's not a big deal for the placement at UPES. We have a good number of companies with a good number of packages, right? So this is not a big deal. But apart from this placement, uh, if you ask me what exactly the career prospects in open source, I'll say, uh, guys, this is sky is the limit for you, because it's an empty canvas. You can draw whatever you want to draw, because if you start using open source, or if you start working on open source software, then there is no limit. And apart from the placement, you can go for the startup, you can go there for for your own company, and there is lot of scope in this particular course. And because nowadays, and why I am saying this, because nowadays this open source is becoming a recruiting tool. And open source, obviously, it attracts the top talent, because we are seeing that companies like Twitter, Ericsson, they actually willing to pay developers to participate in the OSS community, and both develop and use open source in their own framework. And it's also indicating that the open source help to create a new products and services. And there has clearly been a change in the way enterprise look at open source. It has truly become a crucial element in the in the development of new innovative technology. So what do we see as the future of open source? When it comes to a software development, it will be increasingly difficult to integrate or develop and extend close to the source software, because closed source software are extremely costly as compared to the open source alternative. And companies also have come to understand the importance of open source and the key role it plays in developing innovative software today. So like this Twitter's messaging app is a good example of how open source can be powerfully used, and how well-known companies are influencing the community. Because this Twitter open source, it's a messaging platform, and it have a lot of other companies the ability to benefit from the direct messaging capabilities it developed. And the use of this open source has changed the way that the companies compete. It's very difficult for companies to develop innovative software without open source, right? So for example, if you heard about this GitHub has fast evolved as the center of the universe for the coders, as the world's leading code repository. And its versioning system, it's offered as a cloud services. And you know what, GitHub now hosts over 27 millions projects. So obviously nowadays this open source is becoming a recruiting tool, and it attracts the top talent to hire. And there are, I just want to, I would like to share a few couple of stories of our students. There is one student, Tushar Mishra, in open source third year. That project was selected in Google Summer of Code, and he got around 3.5 lakhs of stipend. And we have maximum students, they have Red Hat and Oracle certified, and one student recently developed one Android app, and the name is Jump Dino, and this Android app is now available on Google Play Store. So there are a lot of this kind of stories we have in our campus because they have the platform. So that's why I'm saying, apart from the placement, guys, if you have the talent, if you have the skill, if you have that much of caliber, that placement is not only the thing, will provide you the platform where you can, where you can exactly explore yourself. So this is all about this webinar. Thank you so much for listening me. And now if you have any query, you can feel free to ask me. Hello everyone. If you have any query related to this webinar, please do let me know. Okay, so I guess there is no query. So once again, thank you so much for everyone to listening me. And if you have any query at any time, you can contact me. Thank you. Thanks a lot.